Very good. Well, here we are. Welcome again, folks. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope everyone had a great summer solstice yesterday and the longest day of the year. So today, as Liz said, we are working with EnviroInsite. This is part one in creating cross sections. We will be going through and create the cross sections and adding a lot of other stuff to that. This may be longer than I've done in most of these office hours. We'll see how it goes. But parts 2 and 3 and 4 are coming up in the next 3 weeks, and hopefully you'll be able to join us for those. For today's agenda, we will create a cross-section. We'll plot geology and stratigraphy on that cross-section, and then modify the vertical exaggeration. I'll at least show you how to do that. We may not actually change that for our demonstration to keep things as large as we can. Then we will add a water level and water quality information and go from there. And then we will save a template of that cross section and then create another cross section, B to B prime, and then add that to and reuse that template and show you how all of that comes up. For today's demonstration, I will be using Equus Professional 6.6 with our Springfield data set, EnviroInsite 10.0.0.63. I currently have .NET Framework 4.6.2, and all of my software for today's demonstration, including Office 365, is 64-bit software, just to give you a little information on that. So within our cross section, I will be starting at this point that you see on the screen where we have the plots already up there, or our locations already on a map, and we will start from there just to give you a little idea of where we are going. Come back next week to see how to get that far. For the cross sections, we will come in and try to create something very similar to this with our cross section. And then once we have that cross section set, it will give us give us another tab where we will come in and add our geology. Then we will come in and add our water levels. And we may do stratigraphy in between before we do the water levels. We'll see how it goes. I always love doing live demos because we can just kind of pick and choose and see how everything works together. The stratigraphy plot will come in there. We'll get that put in there. And in this case, we sometimes slide some of these up and down to get a little better view of what we're looking for. And then once we have our stratigraphy, we will go ahead and begin to add some data, actual analytical results. In this case, this adds in a merged table, almost like a cross tab up here on top. And we put that merged data table in there to give us some information on what results we have for these locations. Once we have our stratigraphy and have all that there, then we can come in, along with our merged table, we can come in and actually do a contour plot on this cross section and show where some of our analytical results are, in this case for our cis-1,2-dichloroethene. So for our demonstration, just as the slides indicated, here is a little indication of what we'll do. We're starting with EnviroInsite open and connected to an Equus database with our map and locations already plotted on our EnviroInsite section there. Then we will come in and create the cross section, plot geology, plot stratigraphy, add the water level, put our merge table and contour on, and then we will save a template. At that point, we'll do a second cross section, load that template back in, and see where we get from there. We may have, if we have enough time, we may come in and do a couple other things on that second cross section. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started within our demonstration. So within our window here, we have the EnviroInsite desktop or workspace here. On the left, we have some plot controls. We have properties that'll start showing up here on the bottom left. On the right side, we have our task pane, and this is where we will start with our cross section. Along the top, we do have our other submenus there. So starting here with a cross section, we'll click on cross section, and then we left click. So to start this, I'll left click and drag this down through these soil borings, and then left click again. That will give us a point there. I'll come down, let's come down through here, left click again, and then slide on down here by our boring 53, or well B53. Once we click there, then I can right click, and I right click, and that draws our line, refreshes that, and adds our second tab, and gives us all of our information, gives us a little sub window here that shows us where that cross section is within our EnviroInsite. Also on our first tab, it gives us that information in a larger view, gives us our A to A prime. So now within our cross section, let's go ahead and we can come in on here to our axis and right click and edit. And this will give us some information here in terms of giving us the option. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on our horizontal axis here by clicking on plot labels and say OK. And that gives us our horizontal axis. So now let's go ahead and get our locations on here. We can do this a couple of different ways. We can go up to plot, data, and locations, or we can come up to this menu here, this mini bar, toolbar here, and just click on this well symbol, which brings us to the same place of our locations. So here, let's, in this case, I want to get all of these and not just our SBs. I do want to, for the sake of just not being too cluttered today, I'm going to take my capture distance down to 25. Within the label sections, we can plot labels, so I'll leave that on. We have some options here in terms of changing things there. Our format has a little bit of a change there. And again, we can, within the Equus location groups, we could select here. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to change the capture distance and say OK. And what that does is brings our soil borings and wells in. Now within changing that, we can come in and under our, if we're on our axis, we can go to view and options. And this is where we could change the vertical exaggeration, say to 5 in this case. And that will change and redraw and change that a little bit. I actually, in this case, prefer to have the, leave the vertical exaggeration, excuse me, under view, options, vertical exaggerations. I'm going to leave that at that 3.9, just to draw that out just a little bit further, leave that a little wider. Within our labels here, we can, on our axis, we can come in and go to edit. Again, I'm clicking on axes, right clicking, edit, and going to our axis here so that we can change this to a, within our text, and save that there. We have everything there. Okay. So I'll cancel that. I do want to change this, and within our well, so here on wells, I now click there, I right click and edit, and here is where I want to come to labels and do the rotate. I want to clean this up a little bit and make that, in this case, a -45, and say okay. And now I can just click on these and move those around if I want to. We have some some that are very close together here. I'll slide these around just a little bit to make those a little closer. I can use my wheel here to go in a little closer if I want to see those a little closer like this, just to be able to tell where I'm putting those and which location is associated with which one. Again, I'm just left clicking and dragging to get those separated and a little more visible. Okay, I like that. And now I'll come up and zoom to my window here. And actually, I'm going to zoom to my extents. So there we are back. That's a little bit cleaner. I want to drag this one just down just a little bit lower so I can clean that up just a little bit. Okay, so now we have our wells on there. In this case, we have some soil borings and some wells. We have these here. I can come down and move my legend around just a little bit if I want to. So at this point, I'm satisfied with having our wells on there. So now let's go ahead and add our geology and see where that, what we can get into there. So come to our plot, and on our drop down, we have geology, and then we click on that. Again, we have the interface come up, and I will change this to our 25. Just, I want to keep that kind of narrow today. We can also select other things here. I am going to, at this point, uncheck the plot labels, as I don't want to duplicate these labels across the top. In general, I'll leave the wells on most of the time, so that we'll have our labels there. Again, we do have options here in terms of different things that we can select. Again, our echolocation groups if need be. Again, for today's demonstration, I will go ahead and click OK, and this will refresh and put on our geology. Again, our borings come in there, has that information. We can move within these if we want to drag those up and down. For this one, it's in a good place. I like seeing that all up front. We have our locations labeled. We have our geology. So far, so good. We can also come in and actually draw some of this by hand. For right now, I'm not going to do that, but would like to go ahead and add our stratigraphy. So again, we come up to plot, stratigraphy, and in this case, log. Again, I'll change my capture distance to 25, and labels I will uncheck again. Again, we have our same options there in terms of location groups and all of those other things. So let's go ahead and add our stratigraphy. This again will refresh and put that in. And in this case, you'll see that that put our stratigraphy over top of our geology. Okay for now, so I'll go ahead and leave that there. So that puts our stratigraphy in there. Now I want to really fill this in. So we'll do this again with the plot stratigraphy, and instead of the log, we will do the model. Again, I'll cut this down just a little bit. I'll go ahead and add the ones that I want to add, our or superficial and underlying aquifers, add those. Again, we do have different ways that we can interpolate that. I'll go ahead and leave the inverse distance on at this point. We also have our location groups. We've added that. Leave everything else at the default and just select OK. So what this will do, we'll go ahead and put our stratigraphy in there, and because we have added, I'm just going to slide this legend right up on top of the other one at this point. And here we now have our stratigraphy that is over top, so I'm going to go ahead and slide this up and put that behind my wells, and actually then go up a little higher here and put that right up there and see. And of course, I do have that. Now we have our logs on top, or our geology on top. We can uncheck and check things here if we want to see our screens. Leave everything. I will go ahead and put this up with my stratigraphy up there. All right, so there we have our stratigraphy on there. We have our let me show you one thing on this stratigraphy here that we can change. Go right click on our stratigraphy and edit, and we can come into here into our format, and we can select point to point. If we say OK on that, that will redraw that, and you'll see that this now changes that a little bit. What you can also do, which I won't do in this cross section, but will when we get to our BB prime, you can also come in, and by clicking within our stratigraphy, we can actually go in and modify that. I'm going to come back, right click, edit, and turn this off at this point. If you do manual changes on this, which you can do, it will come in and check this box to detach from the data. If we make changes here, it will not impact or change any of that data within Equus, but it will let you make modifications to that stratigraphy and change that if you want to manually change that and edit it. I'll go ahead and click OK here, and that'll take us back to our smooth line. All right, so let's move on now to add some water levels and see where that comes in. So here what we can do with our water levels is, again, we go to plot, water level, and select our water level. Within this, we now want to have a little bit of a different interface here, but here we are looking at constituents, and at the very bottom, I'll go down to our water level, get our water level here. We can come in here and select whether we want average. In this case, for the water level, I'm going to leave it at average, and I'm going to leave my date range wide open. Again, just for the capture distance, for the sake of this demonstration, we'll cut that down a little bit. I'm also under options. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck the plot well symbol. Okay, so once we have these all ready to go, again, as you can see, we have our location groups in there if need be to select those. If you have a little bit more of a diverse facility that you're working with, in this case, this Springfield data set is pretty straightforward. So we'll go ahead and click OK here and let these come in. And again, what we can do is we see that that has come in. We can come up and slide these over just a little bit to make them a little bit more visible. Again, if I want to use my roller on my mouse, I can come in and look at this a little closer to be able to make a little bit more definition easier, a little easier to move things around. In this case, I don't have too many duplicates, but here we do have one here. Want to kind of slide those around a little bit. So we have the view a little bit easier to see. Make things, this one, I'll move this one over to this side and do the same thing here. And the same thing here. Okay, so there we have our water levels showing here on our cross section. Again, I can come up and zoom things back in, have our water levels in. Okay, very good there. We have our water levels in. Let's now go to a merged table, get a little data, more data on here. This is looking pretty good at this point. So to get our merged table, we go to plot and data and down to merge table. And I believe we could also get it right up here from the merge table there. In this case, for our merge table, we're going to get our groundwater versions of our, not versions, but our groundwater rather than soil, and get our 1,2,1,3-dichlorobenzene. We will get also, let's slide down here and get trichloroethylene for groundwater, and also our vinyl chloride. Oh, it does help if I click on the little icon there to get it moved over and get our vinyl chloride. Okay, so now we have 3 constituents here, and we're going to then change. In this case, I'm going to actually change my date range and go with a date range of, and this seems so far back in the history, but I'm going to go ahead and change that to 1998. Again, I'll cut my capture distance down, and we have now filled in our analytes that we want to see in the merged table. We have our capture range set, and I am going to look at my options here. We have those same type of options, some other text options, formatting, the standard box. And then within the EQUIS, I do want to come to our samples here and check our normal samples. There are also our test and results, so you could cut that down further if you wanted to, but in this case, I'll go ahead and just select our normal samples. Back to our query tab, and we do have that. Let's go ahead and click OK. And this will now bring this in, and here I will go ahead and get that in. A little difficult to read, but let me scroll up there, and that gives us our information and gives us our table, our merge table there. All right, that looking really good here at this point. One last thing I'd like to get on this one before we save our template. I would like to come in and do a contour. In this case, I will come up to our little toolbar here and click on contour. We can also do that through our other selection there. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and just leave our cis-1,2-dichloroethene here. That's just default. Again, within our data transform, we can use average. There are minimum, maximums, first, last, and count. For today, I'll just leave the average, and I'll leave my date wide open and go ahead and just, there are, again, options here. The normal is still selected from my previous selection, so I'll leave that and just go ahead and click OK. So this brings up our contour of these, the cis-1,2-dichloroethene. That kind of overwrites thing, but what we can do is come down here to the left, and there are a number of things that you can come in and change here without having to go into the edit. But here we will change our transparency from 0 to 75, and I'll just click out of that cell so it holds it, and then apply. And this will redraw that, gives us a little transparency there, but still shows that. We could also slide that up or down if we wanted to move things around just a little bit. So that now gets us to our last, I believe, last slide that we had, where we have our merge table, we have our contour, we have water levels, our geology and stratigraphy, and now we're ready to do what I think is just incredible. So here we just come into our view, our template, and save. I have one already here that I've saved, but I'll save over top of that. And we have our template now saved. So now let's go back and create our second cross section. Let's go in here and come again. We come to our cross section. And in this case, I'm going to come right up through here. Again, we left click and drag up through here. Let's go to there, click, left click again, and then finish that with a right click. We now have our B, a B prime, and this, you know, is pretty empty at this point, but now what we do is come up to our view, our template, and load. We just select that one we just saved, click open, and it will go through and do almost all of the things. In fact, in this case, it's done everything. We do have some access to correct here, but that's fine. We can do that, but look at that. We've just put our same table. We've put our contour, water levels, everything. Awesome. We have our BB prime on there, and we're ready to go. So we're doing pretty good here on time. So let me go ahead and do a couple other things here. So I will come back here to this one and see if I can do, there we go. That's what I want to show you. So if you click in the solid color here, we can come in and now drag these points. Let me scroll in so you can see this a little better. So if you want to come in and modify, we can come in and actually change this. If your professional interpretation says, oh, this should be like this, we can come in this and modify these and show you that information like that and make those changes for our stratigraphy. Okay, so within that, we can change that within. I've got that changed there. Let's go back to our B prime. One other thing I want to show you here is our pie chart. Come in and click on the pie chart. And here we will select our, in this case, I will go again with our groundwater, our 1,3-trichlorobenzene, our trichloroethylene. Oh, I forgot to put that over there. Slide that over, and then our vinyl chloride again. Let's see if we have vinyl chloride in the groundwater, and slide that in there. All right, so we have those selected. I'm going to select my date range again of the 6/1/1998 and 6/30/1998. Again, I'll change my capture distance just for this demonstration. Again, we have that. We can, here, if we wanted maximum rather than average, we could do that. We could change our color grids here. We have other options. And again, we have our Equus query information. Again, I have the normal comes back up since I've selected that previously. So let's click OK and see what comes up here. Again, we can, once that comes up, I can drag those over, make things a little more visible. so that we can see what's going on there. This one got a little large, and slide it down here. Okay, so now we have our pie charts have come up. Excited about that. And one last thing here that I want to show, and here again, this is just filling in this. Obviously, we can click things on and off to show different things that we want to. But let's go ahead and go to get our pore information, and I will come back to our A prime, come back to our, get that in here, and come back, and for these soil borings, I would like to get our pore pressure on there. So we go to plot, data, and then profile chart. Within this, we have our pore pressure. Again, I'll just reduce that capture distance. We can also change some other things here, but for this demonstration, we'll just click OK. And this will then bring our pore pressure information up on the grid. All right, so in that case, let's now jump right back into our a couple slides that we have left and pick up where we left off. Taking our locations, we have added an A and A prime and a B and B prime on our first tab. It shows us our cross section. Within our second tab, we then took that cross section. We've added stratigraphy, we added geology, we've added a contour of our cis-1,2 dichloroethene. We've added the merge table here at the top. And then at the very end, we did add the pore pressure there. Within the BB, we added pie charts along with all of the others using that template. The template brought most everything in there. Really exciting in terms of how you can just set your template up the way you want it, then go in and do different cross sections within that A and A prime or B and B prime. Within that cross section, you can click on those points and drag that cross section to change it a little bit if you're not happy with which wells you're showing or something like that. I think I did forget to point that out in the demonstration, but you can just click on that line and actually move that cross section around while you're right in there. It will redraw things and give you all that information. For more EnviroInsite series coming up next week, we'll be working with basemax and layouts on July 6th, geochemistry plots, and on July 13th, strip logs. And as always, if you have questions or need further information, feel free to contact us through these things. So Liz, that's all I have at this point. Let's go back and see what questions there are and see if all of those have been answered at this point.
Sure. It looks like we've got a couple of questions. One question from Mia happened at the very beginning, and I think you might have answered it. But she asked if we can plot samples also in EnviroInsite.
And the sample information that we did pull up both the contour and the table. So I hope that answered the question, or if not, we can get a little more clarification on that.
Yep. Alexander asks, can I change stratigraphy and geology colors?
I believe the answer is yes on that, but I would have to verify that. You can also, on that, within that, draw your own. If you're not satisfied with the way it does that, you can. And if you have a complex geology, you may actually want to come in and actually draw your own geology. So those are the options there.
Yes, most definitely. Okay, Mia has clarified she'd like to show the samples on the actual plot at their specific depths. So I imagine if you've got multiple samples within a soil profile or something.
And I will have to check on that one and see how we exactly do that.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yes, that's a very good question. And I think you have these questions in the question pane, correct?
Yes. Yeah,
yes,
I got those.
You got them. Very good.
I also wanted to note when Bill was altering some of the contour in that A to A prime contour, that when you adjust that stratigraphy based on whatever additional knowledge you might have of the site, you will need to make sure that you detach the data. So he did show how to do that really briefly. You right click on that particular item in the table of contents and select detach data. And that allows you to basically remove that layer from the connection to the database. And if you fail to do that, the next time the connection is created, it will smooth whatever customizations you might have created. So if you are going to be making any sort of adjustments, it's important to make sure you remove that data connection for that layer.
Yep. And it does not change that back to the Equus database.
Correct. And it looks like Brian has asked, licensing options for EnviroInsite have changed over the years. What are the current license options?
The current license options are the same as what EnviroInsite currently has, although we have recently, integrated EnviroInsite into the Equus package, or not into the Equus package, but into the Equus options here. We will be looking at how those might change in the future, but currently we're still using the existing EnviroInsite pricing structure.
And I am adding a link here to answer that question also, with a link to the EnviroInsite page that has the pricing breakdown and all of that for what it is currently. So good question.
And I did include the EnviroInsite link within it's up on screen as well.
Excellent. Let's see. Sarah has asked, would you review the difference between the basic stratigraphy and the point-to-point option?
Do you want to, let's see, in the interest of time, we can probably do what the point-to-point, just rather than, I don't know if it actually averages, but rather than smoothing it, the point-to-point actually goes to each well location. And again, that is it within that captured distance. So if you expand that may change some, and also depends on how many. I kept that captured distance small for today, so I didn't get too many wells on top of each other. But once you change that captured distance and from point to point, the point-to-point actually goes from each location. And so it will be a little choppier as opposed to the other one. If you turn the point-to-point off, then it is more smoothed out for that. See if that answers the question, hopefully.
It looks like Kathleen has noted they'd be interested in seeing EnviroInsite licenses managed in the Equus license database. That's a great point, Kathleen. We can check out and see what the plan is for that. It is definitely pretty new in all of this integration, so we'll definitely make a note of that. Peter asks, are you able to detach from the database and adjust well locations to deal with overlapping information?
A great question, and I don't know the exact answer to that one.
Yeah, we can find out and get back to you.
Sure, find out on that one.
Thank you so much, Bill, for presenting for us today. And if you have any questions that come up after the session, future topic suggestions, or if you'd like to sign up for future office hours, you can email us at officehours@earthsoft.com. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and we hope to see you at our next office hour.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Have a wonderful day.